All right. And oh goodness, Jennifer, let me see if I can add our names in here.
Where's Michelle?
Right here.
Yay!
She made it. Woo!
Sorry, my allergies are beyond ridiculous right now.
Very nice.
Then I got the headset, I got the thing, I got my background. I'm money tonight.
You're ready to go.
That looks very professional. Melissa, I thought people moved to Arizona because there are no allergies there.
Not anymore. It used to be years ago, but not anymore. I have a huge oleander, and everything is in bloom right now. It's absolutely beautiful, but makes my nose run.
Have you ever? Oh, look how pretty! Oh, I love your hair thing, Michelle. Beautiful.
All right, I'm going to get going here, girls. So we're going to do our intro. Welcome to the Pet Pro Educators, the Groomers Cut. And tonight is our first night after our 1-year anniversary. So, yay, we have done such a great job. For those that are joining us for the first time or have not or are watching later, we are on 9 different platforms live streaming right now. So if you are on a platform, we will see all of your questions. You might not see those questions depending on which platform you're watching. So please, we'll go through and answer the questions and put the comments out there that we like. Also, if it's your first time, give Facebook permission through StreamYard. That way, when you do comment, we see your name. Otherwise, we just get a Facebook user. So please let us know who you are. And gosh, any first-time viewers out there right now watching? And where are you guys from?
Stephanie says, congratulations to us on our anniversary.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Stephanie. And hi to Lisa Herbold, my soon to be opening a grooming school teaching partner.
Yay. So this evening we are kicking off May. And May we're going to be talking about, well, I think tonight we're going to start with just talking about the breed groups. The AKC groups, and we're kind of going through all of ours. We're going to come back around for Michelle again, I think in a couple months, and we're going cats with Melissa here in the next couple weeks, I think it's next month actually. June. So
that's
first
wonderful.
time watching live. Well, thanks for coming, Stephanie.
Yay, Stephanie.
Welcome. Yes. And I'm trying out my brand new camera.
The camera looks really good.
Yeah,
it looks really good.
So makes a world of difference. I'm looking forward to start finally doing some videos now.
Yeah. All right. Now, I'm going to have to go out and get something new because Michelle got her new headphones. Melissa's got her brand new virtual oily groomer background. You have the whole operation with the camera and the new study and all that stuff, Dara. So I got
new headphones too. So there, and a microphone. I got a snazzy microphone.
They sound really good.
Look at this.
Oh, I have a big one like that too. I haven't hooked it up yet. Let me know how this works for you.
I'm gonna give it a try. So
yeah,
the sound quality is really good.
Can we hear you, Michelle? No,
we can't hear you.
Michelle, unmute.
No,
she'll figure it out.
I think it's on her end.
She's literally the smartest woman in the whole world, so she'll figure it out.
Yes, she is. I think she can hear us too. Let's not talk about her because she can't hear us.
I can hear you, she's saying.
All right, so let's break these groups down. Which way you want to start tonight? We got 7 to talk about, right?
So are we going to do one group a week?
No, I just kind of broke it down because we don't have that many weeks. So we gotta I think we'll just have to go through some of the groups and then
a little of the history. everything at the beginning. So at the beginning of dog shows in the United States, and by the way, the first dog show in the United States was in, drum roll please, Chicago. First dog show in the United States. It was, a kind of working dog thing for the meat markets here and stuff. But a lot of people think Westminster was the first big all breed event. But that started the year before the Kentucky Derby, and everything in those days was either sporting for hunting or non-sporting. And now we have the legacy of both of those groups, but sporting split into sporting and hound. Non-sporting split off working, split off terriers, split off toys, all of those other things that became big enough to be their own groups. So the first group historically is sporting.
And then anything that didn't fit into those other ones that they branched off to, they stuck in miscellaneous.
No, actually not miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is they stuck it in non-sporting. If it doesn't, if it wasn't, right. It was non-sporting is for things like all the bulldogs or all the beauty-oriented dogs like poodles and Bichons, or like all the dogs from Tibet are in there. So things that just didn't fit in other categories. But every one of the other 7 groups, sporting, hound, working, terrier, toy, non-sporting, herding, all of those broke off as each of the groups got bigger and bigger into their own groups. But, working and herding used to be together. Sporting and hound used to be together. You can kind of tell. But that's really all the functions of dogs, kind of catches them all, in one category. Other countries call the herding group pastoral group. So some of them call them different things, but it's pretty cool. So if you want to go in historical order, and the ones that would go together, we need to do more than one a week, we're going to do 4 of these episodes, so we could do sporting and hound together. Those are the hunting breeds.
Well, what I wanted to do was talk about the AKC groups in general, and then pick what you would think because we got 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, because Memorial Day, unless we do a Tuesday instead of Memorial on our Monday, but we could probably throw in that 5th week. But grooming the blank coat would be the next couple weeks.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So maybe more common coat textures and talking about those and where they are within the groups.
Well, one of the things that I think is sort of one of my unique contributions to the lexicon in dogs is that I noticed, and probably other people notice this too, there are, of all the 15 coat types that I have articulated in terms of grooming coat types, and that is not the same as what Michelle taught me all about, the genetic coat types. There's 8 of those, right, Michelle? Can you speak, Michelle? No,
we can't hear you.
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Is it your new headphones? No.
Maybe go off and come back on.
Oh, she just muted herself.
Hmm.
I unmuted her.
Hello.
Oh, yay!
We got you now.
So when
Michelle, we can stop talking about her.
I can still hear you, so run along.
So Michelle taught me about the genetic types, and then of course the veterinary, biochemistry types, the short, medium, long. So, but one of the things you were talking, Dara, about the 7 AKC groups that have function, that is what defines them. And actually almost all of the coat types appear in almost all of the groups. But one of the things that I noticed some years ago, when I was teaching at a grooming school and I was putting up all of the breeds and groups on the walls, and I'm like, wow, this group, it has multiple coat types in it, but it's dominant. It has a dominant coat type. Like in the sporting group, you have a ton of what I call the flat coat, what you would see on a golden retriever, where you have a short, flat lying back and then furnishings underneath, and that serves a purpose. So that's a dominant coat type in the sporting group. In the working and herding groups, they're outdoor dogs. You see a dominant double coat. Even though there's a lot of different coat types represented in those groups, the majority of the dogs in that group have that dominant coat type. So there's dominant long coats in the toy group. There's dominant curly coats in the non-sporting group because of the artistic piece. There's dominant smooth coats in the hound group. And let me see if I'm missing any. Oh, and dominant wire coats, of course, in the terrier group. So even though there's multiple coat types in those groups, that there is that dominance too. So take your pick. Take your pick. Well,
I'm writing it down because I got to do the follow up with this. So I'm half listening as I'm trying to write here.
Well, I would say, because I'm a historian and I like to do things chronologically, the sporting group and the hound group, which go together historically, they're both hunting groups, and the sporting group's purpose is to hunt with the hunter. So they assist the hunter by flushing the game, pointing to the game, retrieving the game. Those they work with the hunter. The hound group, they hunt independently. They go and they either are a sight hound and they chase down the prey, or they are a scent hound and they smell down the prey and they find them by scent and then call the hunter to them. So, but these are all hunting dogs. And if we did 2 groups tonight, sporting and hound, that would give us the flat coats and the smooth coats as 2 dominant coat types in that group.
All right, so you want to do those, and that because that now we've got 3 more weeks to break down the next 2.
Does that sound good?
We might have that miscellaneous group thrown out there.
Well, I think probably with the working and herding, the double coats being the dominant coat type there, and they come in different lengths. You know, some of them are short, some of them are medium, and some of them are long. So there's a lot.
Don't forget the flushers and the pointers.
Absolutely. Right. So anyway, so I would say, let's go in historical order, and the flat coat and the dominant smooth coat. And I basically what I've always pointed out to groomers is, I just think one of the reasons why this Pet Pro Educator thing exists is we're really big into wanting to do things, what the science tells us. And we're very big into doing it properly, best practices. And I think there's too many people that will take a clipper to the back of a golden retriever or a Springer Spaniel or something that you actually wreck the lay of the coat by clippering it. And all you really need to do is work on the furnishings, and then really it's a de-shedding type coat. So almost all of the most common coat in the sporting group is a coat that makes it very practical for them to do what you just said, Michelle. They flush the game, they point to the game, but where are they hunting? They're hunting in the grasses. They're in upland hills and fields, and the grasses are very scratchy. And
if you really want to get technical, each dog that hunts, it was developed for a specific location. So it might be rocky terrain, it might be marshy, it might be depending on what they hunt. So that's how they were bred, and their coat type is special to that area. So if they are hunting in water, if they're water retrievers or swampy hunters, then they have oil. It all matches. If you put it in a huge chart, that's maybe my next project. If you put it on a huge chart, you can see the correlation between absolutely how it's genetically made, where it hunts, and how you treat it, how you bathe it, how you care for it, how you give it therapy. All that stuff actually matters. It's on an actual timeline that you could chart. So it's not some arbitrary way of treating a coat. It is an organic, focused, specific way to treat that individual coat, that breed type.
So if you
did a class on cockers. I used to breed and show them, and I was known as the cocker lady groomer. And
I'm sorry.
I love them. I know. I still love them. I still have two. There's the two last cockers standing here, and one of them has 3 legs, so he doesn't stand that well, but he's still around. And one of the things that I really wanted to make sure that the groomers understood, I taught a class literally for the Grooming Association for Arizona Groomers. So was that they would always complain about the greasy ears and the greasy skin and why does their coat take so long to dry, and why, you know, all the coat issues you see. Groomers hate cockers. That's why I got into them, because I loved them and I knew that I could make a business from grooming them. And so once I started to teach them the fact that, you know, most of your breeds, like your Springers, your Cockers, your Setters, even your Cavaliers originally, your English Toy Spaniels, all those Spaniels were originally one breed. And then they started individually breeding for specific things. And the ones that collect the fowl, you know, that have to pick up the birds, and that's what Cockers are named after. They would go
they were
and
named
fetch
for the woodcock.
Woodcock, right.
Yes,
and they
the
would
duck,
have to
the
go
woodcock.
retrieve them. And they are a retriever, and they have a soft mouth. And sometimes they would have to be in super dense thicket in England. And on top of that, that's why their coats are so dense. And on top of that, a lot of the hunters would use them to retrieve ducks as well, because they were already out there hunting. And so they would have to retrieve from marshy areas, which is why they have web feet, which is why they have such an oily coat, because it helps repel the water. And so, you know, a lot of the things that we see as groomers on specific breeds that we see across the entire breed is, like Michelle said, they're genetically predisposed to have these things because that's what they were created for.
Exactly. And the style of a short flat lying back and then furnishings underneath, that made great sense to any kind of one of these retrievers or spaniels or setters, where they were running around in these prickly grasses, flushing the game or whatever, pointing to the game. And then they would, you know, leaping into the water or the marshes or whatever to retrieve it. And that would be, you know, a coat that would provide them some protection underneath from the grass, but also being short and flat lying on the back. They get out of the water and they shake off, and it's, you know, and you can go. And it's not, you know, a huge matted mess. These, you've heard me talk before about what I'm calling now fur versus hair. It's otherwise known as the genetically predetermined length of hair, as opposed to an undetermined length of hair. Like, this hair is undetermined length. It grows and grows until you cut it. But the hair on my forearms is predetermined length. It grows to a certain length and stops, right? So almost all of these dogs are fur type, grows to a certain length and stop. But if you have that flat lying back and then furnishings underneath, you've got 2 genetic programs, one that is programmed to grow flat and stop at a certain length, and then the ones underneath that are designed to grow longer and be more fringy. They're both going to grow to a certain length and stop, but there's 2 different lengths programmed in there. And you have to, as a groomer, I think, one of the, biggest eye-opening things for most of the people that take some of my classes is that they realize that, you know, when you take a clipper to a golden retriever, I've seen this conversation on Facebook a million times. You know, oh my gosh, I got all these lines all over the dog. You know, you don't have to do anything to the back except de-shed it, you know,
Card it
run
out.
a comb and brush
Card it.
through it.
Right.
Card it. Yes, absolutely. That's what they do in the showering. I just take one of those Andis de-shedding rakes and, you know, just, you know, pull all the dead hair out. But if you want to trim it underneath, trim away. You know, it's not going to hurt that hair that's underneath that's programmed to do that. But most of these dogs are fur, and should not be, at least on that jacket area on the top and sides of their torso, should not be shaved, because when it grows back, they do have an undercoat. They're not a technical double coat by my definitions, but they do have that very strong undercoat to protect them for exactly what you were saying, Melissa. And they need to have to take a clipper to this area that we call the jacket on a dog. That's really critical, not just in the sporting group dogs, but also in the terriers and in all the double coated dogs. So it's that area of the top and sides of the neck, shoulders, spinal, torso, side of the rib cage, across to the top of the hip. So if you laid a blanket over the top of a dog, it's the stuff that would touch. And it's like the pattern area. If you look at a show Irish setter or a show Springer, it's the short, flat lying areas, and that has to be treated with carding and de-shedding and just combing and not shaving, because if you shave it, then what happens is it starts growing up instead of being flat lying, and it gets much thicker. The undercoat comes back in a rage. The outer guard hairs are damaged. So that's one of the best things, best grooming tricks to give people on these flat coats.
And what do you think? This is a fun question. Here's a trivia. What do you think the number one reason cockers in salons come back and they're greasy and they're disgusting and you can never fix them, quote unquote? What do you think the number one thing we as groomers are doing incorrectly? Anyone?
Do you want to ask and throw it out or do you want one of us to answer?
Yeah, you want us to answer, or you want somebody in the audience to answer?
Anybody.
Let's have an audience answer, because I think we're all on the same page for it.
Yes, Kim, that's me.
Yes,
I know. That's what I was going to say.
Kim's asking if that's why you're the oily groomer. I love that.
Yeah, if someone knows why we have so many problems with cockers, let me know.
Degreasing.
Oh, Lisa, you're very close. But what? Okay, that's something that we're doing. What is something that we're not doing?
Condition.
Sorry.
I'm not taking her to any Trivial Pursuit games at all.
That's right.
Right.
Oh, maybe. No.
Degreasing, and Lisa Herbold says degreasing instead of conditioning and nourishing.
Okay, so water dogs are twofold. Yes, yes, and yes. They're both important. So water dogs do have a grease. I consider a Yorkie in the same class, even though it wasn't developed for hunting, but they have the same system that produces grease for a different reason, but they're the same way. You do lightly degrease water dogs, but then you throw a whole bunch more grease back on them when you're done. And those two things, done properly, will almost alleviate nearly every greasy, nasty cocker that you have, just doing those two things. So I rarely say degrease, because degreasing to me sounds super harsh. But when oil sits on top of something, anything, I don't care if it's on a living being or on top of your stove, what's it do? It's going to get rancid. It's going to go bad. We got to clean all that off and then replace all of it with a mineralized oil. You can do it inside your conditioner. And then you can polish it when you're done also with a pure oil. But they have to have oil. And so many people are so busy trying to get the grease off, they don't realize that they need to put it back on again for that dog to stay
Oil
healthy.
is the life of the skin and coat. You cannot, we as humans and as animals, cannot survive without it. It serves multi layers of function.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds counterintuitive to people, right? That if you want to degrease a dog, actually adding a good conditioner, because what happens in like a lot of the labs, and that's one of the short double coated dogs that's in the sporting group. You take a Labrador Retriever and you degrease it, and it's going to look really clean and crisp for that first day or two. But what's going to happen is that the sebaceous gland inside the hair follicle is going to say, my God, we've been stripped naked, make more.
And that's what happens with cats too. They degrease them and they remove all the oils, and it looks beautiful when it is blown dry and
for
just
2
done.
seconds.
Exactly. And then it is nothing but brittle, dry coat. And their sebaceous glands go, send more oil.
Or they go dormant and they fail to make enough oil quickly enough. Then the dog is itchy and scratching itself to death.
Scratchy.
And then it has an allergy. Then it gets put on steroids or Cytopoint. And then you start the cycle and that dog becomes patchy and all secondary hair. And it's disgusting. And we are responsible for that middle ground there. We're responsible for re-oiling and remineralizing those double coats, those water dogs. They have to have them.
So if I could, if there's a couple things I would love to do, if I could wave a magic wand and change things in the dog world, and one of them would be to just, anybody that's ever using Dawn dishwashing liquid, just please stop.
I know.
Please stop. Because that whole cycle
unless you absolutely have a dog that walked underneath a waterfall of motor oil, you shall not use Dawn.
Well, if
you
years ago, I sent a letter to PG&E to prove a point when I used to have my grooming school. And so because I worked so much with the Grooming Association and was a member, and I did a lot of classes and within my school. And so they would always be like, why aren't you using Dawn? You do all these cockers, just wash them in Dawn and you'll get rid of all that nastiness. And so I wrote a letter, and what PG&E wrote back to me was that P&G, Procter & Gamble, they wrote back to me that while they use Dawn on wildlife to save their lives because they are caught in oil slicks, and oil, engine oil, right, and all that kind of stuff. They do not recommend their product for regular maintenance and grooming, and because it is designed to strip away all of the oil. And they said on animals that they have to use, that they use it on that actually are not feathered animals, that are rabbits or any other animal. They always show the little ducklings, but they do also rescue rabbits and other wildlife.
Anything that lives on that aquatic.
And so they have to re-moisturize them, and they use conditioning products.
And not only that, it took them a decade to find out why they had such a bad success rate.
Yeah, why so many of them were dying.
Until they figured out, you know what? They do have an oil gland that makes them float. Yes. We might want to extract that or use some oil on them. And then they started having a better success rate of them surviving.
Right. So the whole idea is not to get rid of all of it. The idea is to balance it.
Catherine Samard, until they found out they had to recondition them, the unsuccessful living part of the ones that perished was up to about 86%. 86%
I heard it was
died.
Almost 90% of them died.
Yeah, it was bad. But now they have better success rate. Hopefully, because of some of the things that we've taught over the years, that have gotten back to them to say that, you know what, maybe you should put some oil on them. But the interesting point of Melissa's whole story here is that if you go on Dawn's website right now,
Dawn dishwashing liquid.
Yes. Yeah. Every single picture they have of anybody using their product, they're wearing gloves.
Mm-hmm.
They're wearing gloves.
I tell you. Yeah.
And they recommend that you use gloves. That's why dishwashing gloves were invented.
Because it will hurt you too. It'll strip you too.
Dawn dish liquid.
The oil.
It not only does it strip oil, but the surfactant is so strong that it will actually break apart and strip the oil out of living cells, out of living tissue. So you're drier before you started. The Palmolive thing, I shouldn't be saying these brand names, should I? The brands that say, it softens your hands while you do the dishes, it softens your hands for a minute, but not for forever, because you're not conditioning your dishes. You want them squeaky clean,
Molly says that she was taught to use Dawn just on the paws, But the paws, if you degrease them, they don't even have hair to protect them.
Right.
Yeah, that's I mean, the point is, if you've got a really dirty dog, any shampoo is going to work to get the dirt off. Any shampoo, because it's all a surfactant molecule, and you just have to put it on in enough, massage it in, really work it in all over.
The detergent should actually equal the amount of dirt that is on the dog. If it's a super dirty dog, you're going to use more shampoo. If it's just a maintenance groom and you're just taking off regular dust and a little bit of dirt on the feet, then you match that amount of shampoo, the surfactant, and you match that surfactant to the amount of dirt. And it really is like that because it takes so much. Anybody who stood at the sink with their mama when they were little and you were helping her do the dishes, what is the old adage? You either need, if you don't have any more bubbles and you still have pots and pans to do, you add more shampoo, more Dawn dish liquid or more dish liquid into your water, or you use hot water to break up the grease. And it's the same way. It one equals another. And I just want to insert here, don't be afraid of sulfate shampoos. When you have a shampoo, you want it to clean, use a sulfate-based shampoo. There is nothing wrong with sulfates. They do not cause cancer. It was proven in 3 or 4 different studies that I'm sure that if you ate 89 pounds of it in one sitting, you'd have some problems. But we don't do that. It's just like anything else that's beneficial.
So I think the bottom line is we never use dish soap on dogs, okay? Because you're never going to be pulling them out of an oil spill. And all you need to do is
evolved for that. We've come too far in this industry to use products like that.
Yeah.
Right. The formulators that we have available now, the formulas we are bougie. We're downright bougie.
Yes,
we have so many selections now.
Right.
Back in the day, I'm sure some of us can remember, all we had was like a white coat and coal tar.
I remember
that is it. And both of them cause cancer.
I would like to just say that not every dog or cat needs to be heavily conditioned. I'm a huge proponent, and somebody just wrote me an email the other day, and I answered her. I told her about adding clay, all the good stuff that we know to do. And I said, and you don't have to slather them in conditioner. It doesn't, you don't have to do that. Make enough cream rinse for that pet and, dilute it with the water, shake it up, work it through the coat, and then rinse. Just a nice light rinse. It's still going to do its job and not weigh down the coat the whole time.
The layer of grease, the layer of the mantle is microscopic.
Right.
It's not this thick.
It's not this thick.
Yes. The denser the coat, the more watery your conditioner should be.
Yeah.
So that it can penetrate and then be rinsed out completely.
Yes.
The denser the coat, the more watery your conditioner should be. Absolutely.
So that it can penetrate.
So that it can get down to where we want it to get to, which is the skin. It's to nurture that follicle and that skin. But
because the movement of the animal spreads the conditioner. It will spread the oils as soon as the oils are being made naturally.
Right.
And so Kim and Angie and others in the chat room are pointing out that whatever is happening to our own skin when we're washing, and we, after a couple of baths of dogs, we end up with rashes and stuff. That should be a sign to us. If it's drying to us when, we have much thicker skin than the dogs do. And we don't have as much hair to protect us, but we don't need it because we've got the super thick skin. But it is, it's just not a good idea unless a dog's really in, as you say, just been pulled out of an oil spill.
Right. We need to start to change the way we think. I was one of those groomers until I originally took a Michelle class a bazillion years ago. And I lived by the credo, squeaky clean. I didn't want to feel anything on that coat. That coat had to be so clean. And I used to say that to my students or my apprentices. And I'd be like, bone dry and squeaky clean and bone dry.
Bone dry is a whole nother episode. Don't get me started.
Exactly. I know. But I had to recenter my grooming brain because, you know, we all have this. And I was like, oh my goodness. This woman is like, she's telling me everything that I'm doing is incorrect. And I'm actually harming skin and coat.
Damp is better. Yeah.
Yep. Damp is
and I
better.
just learned that myself.
Brushing dry coats. Yeah.
And the only exception to damp is better is if they are dealing with a yeast some kind of a fungal infection.
Right.
Then that is the only way that they need to be bone dry. Otherwise, they should be oiled and hydrated.
Hydrated in some way. So
you wouldn't believe when I first started doing this. I can't tell you how many people I made cry.
Yeah,
like I made them cry.
I had
them
cry. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything wrong.
But it's true because I remember those days when when I was first taught to groom in the 80s by other people, I never used conditioner at all. And the dogs would be very clean when they left the shop. And 3 days later, I'd get a phone call that says, how come my dog's, stinky, like worse than before the groom? Because their sebaceous glands go into,
and
then you automatically said, well, bring them in and I'll rebathe them. And you didn't condition them again.
Right. Make it worse. Now, I've seen diagrams of so you have the layers of the skin and you have that outer layer of the dermis and the epidermis. And that there's a sebum layer, which is just that oil layer that's naturally made by the sebum, which is produced by the sebaceous gland inside the hair follicle. But I think it was a really helpful thing for me to see a diagram of where dirt on a dog will sit on top of that. You don't need to strip off the entire sebum layer and expose all of the skin. You just need to kind of peel off the top. Yeah.
Well,
you need to get the dirt off the top.
Let me ask you this, because would you explain that kind of as, the wax floors?
Yes.
And when you start mopping those wax floors, and the first thing we do is put hot water on them. And you're trying to wash those wax floors with hot water, and that top layer gets hot, and instead of picking up all the dirt, it just soaks into that first layer of wax. Good and point. Then as it dries, it seals it right back up. So you just keep adding dirt and dirt and dirt on top of those wax floors. So is doing that with cool water better than doing it with hot water? It depends on,
I think you're always supposed to, do the conditioning step in cool. Am I? To rinse and cool.
Yeah, and while that is a good analogy, it doesn't really cross over to a living skin, because a living skin, just like an ear, is a self-cleaning mechanism. So it's always going to be pushing up hair, pushing up sebum, pushing up pheromones. It's always going to be do that. And then with the movement of the animal, it always spreads it around. So we just are trying to connect the surfactant with those pieces of dirty oil, the dirt and the pollen, the proteins that have fallen on the dog. And there's a difference between just cleaning a dog and then degreasing it so hard that you do go right in, you take grease out of the follicle itself. And a lot of people say, oh, we can't, you can't really groom that deep. Well, chemically you can. You absolutely can. If you can move the hair up against its muscle, you actually can microscopically put chemicals into the follicle itself and degrease the follicle, which is what you don't want. You never have to degrease the follicle unless you are dealing with a heavy skin dermatological condition.
Well, and I was going to say, I have microbubble machines, and I don't use them routinely on every dog every time, because they do really pull stuff out of that's the whole point of microbubble.
So deep, right.
It goes into the pores and follicles. So I use it when the dog's been skunked. Okay.
Right.
That's why I bought the machine. We are in Skunk Central here in Chicago. And we have, hello. Are you guys all hearing that?
Yeah.
Sounds like a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got it because of all of the skunk attacks. And there are 4 to 6 months of the year where we were getting 3 to 5 skunk attacks a day at my grooming shop. And so we found the microbubble incredibly effective because just regular soaps weren't getting the skunk oil that was going down inside the pores and follicles. So microbubble was really, really doing the trick. However, as soon as we are done microbubbling, we heavily condition because we know we have just removed all of that protective stuff from the skin. And if you don't really then put an excellent conditioner on it and, really let it soak and work in, then you have pulled all that stuff off of there. And I also use it for dogs with fungal and bacterial infections, but then again, heavily condition with the appropriate product depending on the skin or coat type from there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also going back to the sporting and the flat coats, and you can actually, I use an oil. I usually have castor oil, or I make a lot of my own stuff, but I use a lot of the black castor. Rub it on my hands, and then after I'm done at the end of the groom, I don't like to use a lot of perfumey stuff. Yep, and just work that through, and just kind of puts a shine and a gloss, and there are other ones. Exactly, and especially here in Arizona.
Oh, yeah, so dry.
It's so arid and so dry here. So I like to pull that through their pads, through their paws, on their feet, just kind of pull that all through, because especially the ones that get those yeasty, feet where they're, that oil it just feels so good to them because it's so inflamed. And so I think it doesn't matter, we're talking about these particular kind of coats, but I do that on poodles. I do that on, a drop coat. I do that on, Pomeranian. I just people think that groomers think that they have to use a ton of product. And by just putting that drop in your hand and rubbing it together and just kind of working it through, you're also helping their sebaceous glands spread that through their coat. And I also use boar's hair bristle brushes, which are very natural and soft, and use that, like, especially if it's a shorter coat dog, like it's one of the hound breeds, and it's got a smooth coat. And those dogs have horrible dry skin problems, obviously, even in the best of climates. But I would ask, I'll just toss this out to you all. Would you use a different type of conditioner? Let's take our sporting group dogs that have one kind of short, flat-lying fur-type hair on their backs and a longer, slightly different texture feathering underneath. Would you use different kinds of conditioners for those two types of hair? I use different strengths. I use the same conditioner, but I always make a cream rinse. So I might get into those thicker, denser areas with a little bit thicker product, and then I pour the cream rinse and work it, through. But, I don't need to have 27 different conditioners, for each different one.
And she's right. She says the boar's hair bristle brush gets them a high gloss and they sparkle in the sun. That's so true.
And I challenge everyone who uses those boar bristle brushes, use them on your drop coats as well. On your Maltese, use them on your long coats, your Afghans, all of those, because it does something. Use them on your own hair.
It's true.
It takes all that static. Right.
In some way, it just smooths and polishes the hairs. They'll matte last for next time. I mean, it's really good.
Dara gave me one of the beautiful gift when I was there. Among other wonderful things that she gifted me was the Chris Christensen boar's hair brush, but it has copper. Am I correct?
Yeah,
it has
copper
the
bristles
in it. My gosh!
I think they call that the ionic because it has brass in the middle and
Yeah.
boar's hair
I
around the
call
edge.
it
Yeah.
the game changer.
It polishes.
It's
Yes.
my favorite tool.
It works
Yeah.
amazing, especially if I use it beforehand, before I bathe those really dandruffy animals, whether it's a dog or a cat. And it pulls a lot of that up already and, to the surface. And then it makes the bathing so much easier. It just rinses away. And then afterwards, if there's anything left there at the end of the groom, it really just pulls it off and just glosses that coat. Unbelievable.
Stephanie
I can't
asking what's our
Dara
favorite
enough for
boars.
that.
Those are great. I have two of them. I love them. Stephanie wants to know our favorite boar's hair brushes. Mine, I have some made by Bass, which are really good.
They're good.
Really,
too.
really
So
like those.
if you're going to get an actual all-natural boar bristle brush, you're going to spend $200 or $300. For our grooming purposes, they have hybrids. So I have a hybrid brush because I will spend $300 on a brush. Don't get me wrong, but you don't need to. If you're keeping it for yourself or for your show dogs or whatever, and you want to spend that money and have the best, because over time those boar bristles will imbue that same oil into the coat over a period of time. It's like you season it like a frying pan or whatever. You season those brushes.
That's wonderful.
But I use a hybrid.
That's what Kat wants to know if castor oil is toxic.
No, it could make them, have really loose stool if they eat it, but on the skin, no, I've never, and I've been using it for years, and I've never had an issue.
Yeah. Unless you have castor oil with the protein still in it, the protein parts are where the poison is. But once it's processed out, and it's hair oil, and then they separate that toxin out and they use it in manufacturing for other things. But once you process that oil out, depending on what brand you have, of course, some are best, some are better than others. But for the most part, no, that's a very safe hair oil.
And one of the things and Julie's asking, she uses the Nature Specialty, and people are asking, Kat's asking, which ones do we recommend? I mean, it was Michelle that taught me this very early on in my grooming career, as when I opened my shop 7 years ago. 7 years ago Sunday, I had my 7-year anniversary of my shop. So I had very good training from Ms. Knowles, and that the smooth coats breeds and the short, like Doberman pinchers and boxers and the hounds and the smooth coated breeds, those and even maybe a hairless ones, they need really greasy oil. They need the most powerful oils that you can do. And then you get into your more medium coats, the double coated dogs, the wire coated dogs, they need more minerals. And then the long coats need the most, conditioners, humectants, emollients, collagen conditioners. So remember that your conditioners should not be the same for every dog, right? You're gonna have at least 3 levels: ones that are more oil heavy, ones that are more mineral heavy, and ones that are more moisturizer heavy, right? Did I summarize that correctly, Michelle?
Yes, and there are formulations.
You could be a bathtub mixologist, and Michelle will tell you how to make your own stuff, and that's even better.
There are commercial preparations, commercial lines that have those distinctions within their shampoos and their conditioners. ISB is one of them. But they're also different types of conditioners for different types of coats. It makes it easier for me. I use what I call a base. I use a shampoo base and a conditioner base. And then I have all the oils that I like for each different coat type that I add. So I do mix for each individual. Many of it does look very similar because I'm doing a maintenance groom or a maintenance bath. But when you're doing therapeutics, it really makes it interesting because you can have that base and you can make that base just as therapeutic as you want, shampoo and conditioner. So that's what I do. I don't have a brand name shampoo and conditioner. I use a base. It's from a company, but they make a base, and then I have additives, which I then I mix.
That's my favorite way to do it as well. Is I prefer to work with a base and it's minimal ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can add what I want and or what the pet needs. Because sometimes they come different seasonal, coats change seasonally. So, you might use
and with age, even the same breeds, as they age,
So, you might use something in the summer and, and then in the fall, you want to use something else. Or, when you've been grooming the dog since it was a puppy and now it's a senior, and the skin changes just like ours, so you want to use things that are going to help strengthen that skin a little bit, that are going to help, things slow down like the sebaceous glands, or they get overactive, it depends. So it's about, I don't know. I just always, once I learned what I learned from Michelle and I really took that to heart, I really felt like it's my job to try and balance this dog's little ecosystem on the skin as much as possible when it comes to see me. I can't control what they feed it. I can't control where it lives or what environmental things would affect their skin. But what I can do is, is create a good balanced environment while they're in my care.
Exactly.
And hopefully that'll carry over with better grooming practices and talk to them, educate the client about other things that affect those, like nutrition and all that.
What do you guys think of Kat's suggestion about a light mist, a damp towel, sending them home to air dry with just a little bit of dampness? She said that step has really changed all of the clients' coats.
Yeah.
For very many of my allergy clients that are just dry, I do send them home damp, and they'll probably get some kind of a mineral mist to spray on them at home, because sometimes parents just need to do something. They see that the pet is in distress, and that's why veterinarians make a ton of money on cream. They're like, put this cream on it. They're like, they know the parent is going to find some cream and put on it. If they give them some cream, at least they know it's not going to harm the pet. And we have the power to do that. You can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I think that it doesn't have to be bone dry when it's when it leaves. But again, we're not talking about the aesthetic grooming. You know what I mean? Like the perfect haircut. We're thinking about it on a much deeper level.
And I think that when you look at these purebred dogs and the whole history and purpose and function and how they were living and working outside, this is exactly why their coat needs to work the way that it's bred to work.
Right,
and
exactly.
Even now that they don't do the hunting purposes, they still have that programming in their coat. If we don't work with the nature of their coat, if we work against it, then we are hurting them instead of helping them. And that is not why I'm sure most of us got into grooming. Stephanie's asking about light conditioners versus heavy conditioners. She thinks some of them feel too heavy, but
isn't it? You kind of said it earlier. Was it Michelle? You said if it's feeling heavy, then dilute it more.
But the type of oil that you're using can make it heavy even in the most watery dilution. So if I'm using, for an example, let's say that I take my base conditioner, which just has minimal, like 5 things in it. It's in an aloe vera base, and I want a heavier conditioner or for something that's a water dog, because we're talking about them today. So I'm going to add something. I can add like an avocado oil, which is very thick. I could add a baobab oil, which is slightly less thick than that, but it's still very viscous.
That's a viscous.
Yes, it is. You just need a little bit. Like I said, the oil layer is microscopic. It's tiny. So you don't need to slather it up unless you're recovering some kind of impacted coat. That's a separate kind of thing. But you just need a little bit. And if your conditioner is feeling heavy, the oil that it's containing is probably a heavy oil, like olive or avocado or, God forbid, coconut. A lot of people love
coconut is.
But it's like the worst for hair and skin. It
on the outside, it's good to feed.
It does not.
Yes, internally,
that's good internally, but it does not absorb well, and that it lays. And when oil and it's
an emollient.
And when it lays on top, it just does the opposite of what you want it to do, which is attract dirt. Everything, think of that grease and everything, every dust molecule, everything is just going to glob into
sticky. That. Yeah, it stays sticky. It doesn't absorb.
If any of you all have ever groomed one of these sporting group dogs called the Chesapeake Bay Retriever, they literally have the oiliest coat of, I believe, of all 200 AKC dog breeds. I've never seen anything like it. You literally take your hose in your bathtub and start squirting on their back, and it all beads up and runs off, and the dog is still bone dry.
And then they go. One might be a little bit worse, which is the Otter Hound.
Yes, Otter Hounds can be like that. Only, they have a longer coat. You can kind of lift up and go in underneath it.
That's very true. But
very short and thick.
It's like
literally just to get the dog wet to clean it. You have to almost pull the hair on the Chessie's back and they were the hose and stuff in underneath it. It's crazy. But
by divine design.
That's exactly. I was going to say, you don't want to mess with that. I actually, on the 2 or 3 Chessies I've done, I pull back the top layer. I squirt the water down to the skin. I try to use, a good, helpful, not harmless, high end. I use a lot of Yves Saint Bernard shampoos for sure, and try to get the skin really clean. But I don't try to strip those coarse outer hairs of their oils.
Well, you can. That would be a good candidate for the close, open, close technique, if you will.
Absolutely. Condition them first.
You condition because you just soften it because you want to clean them, but then you're going to use a heavier oil like an avocado oil in their conditioner because that is going to nourish them and it's going to coat all those hairs until they can build up from the skin up their wax layer.
So Angie is asking about coconut oil, and thank you, Stephanie. I'm glad that this is helpful. Coconut oil, Angie says, is a wonderful carrier oil for perfume, but perfumes are not great for dogs because dogs have very...
Oh, no. That's not what she's saying. She's saying that's why you shouldn't use coconut oil. That's why, she's saying that's why you wouldn't use coconut oil because coconut oil, the reason it's so good for perfume is because it doesn't absorb quickly.
It lays
on top of the skin. Yeah. That's why it's not a good candidate. So, correct, Angie, you are correct. Catherine says, is there really a thing as too much oil or too heavy? Yes. If you don't rinse them enough or you use too heavy of an oil, you attract more dirt, which attracts bad bacteria, and it just kind of feeds on itself and becomes some kind of infection.
And too much, if you have too much, it takes forever for them to
and
dry.
you never get a good finish. Because you've not rinsed it out. You can't rinse it out of the coat. That's why it freaks me out that some of these commercial muds for de-shedding, like I can't even wrap my head around that because it doesn't match. See that? It doesn't match. But I tried to use a couple of commercial muds for de-shedding as they had prescribed, and I'm like, this sucks. This is the worst. No, there's so much easier ways of doing that, and mud is for detoxing. So
and de-shedding, all that de-shedding products do, my right, is kind of clump it together so that it sticks together. It doesn't actually make the coat shed more than what you normally would do. Most of these sporting group dogs and hound group dogs are shedding breeds. They are going to have, in fact, I had 4 golden retrievers in my shop today. Each one of them would normally take me maybe 20 minutes of carding and brushing and de-shedding and combing after to finish the coat. Today we spent an hour plus on each one of them because it's April and it's May and they're just blowing, they're blowing off their winter coat.
June 21st is right around the corner.
That's
You're going to do a lot of de-shed.
That summer solstice, they're
So
So certain times
But
of the
that's a huge part of our job, is to know this information and disseminate that information to the owner, so that when they say, I paid for a de-shedding shampoo and I went home and my dog is shedding all over the house. That's why when I used to tell people, they'd be like, do something about the shedding. And I would tell them, I will do everything that I can to help with the shedding, but shedding is an internal thing that your dog has seasonal shedding. And it's what?
Thing.
And it's a good thing, right? It has to happen. And so,
every single one of my
don't get it.
Every single one of my non-shedding breeds, and I show poodles and Australian shepherds. So I have both, right? And I also have even in the doodles and stuff, the non-shedding breeds all end up by the time that they're older with cysts and hard growths on their skin and lumps and clumps, because the shedding is actually good for the, that's what Mother Nature intended the dogs to do. Yeah.
If I have a client that tells me, I just want to stop the shedding, I'm like, well, then you would have to put your dog down. I've said that to some clients. If your dog is shedding, that means it's alive and it's processing correctly. And we want that. I tell people we can remove
excessively shedding.
Yeah, we can remove 85 to 95% of the loose hair.
Right.
But we're going to shed again. We lose 100 strands of hair off of our own heads every day. Every day. It's mosaical. It happens every day. You're going to have some hairs that are going to be expelled out of the follicle.
That's right.
And you can't help that.
No,
we'll just shave it.
Oh God, no.
I know. Then
we tell them once I do what I'm doing, and the de-shedding process, and I tell them it's a process, not a product.
Yes,
there is no product. It's a process. It is not a product. And then when they pick up their dog, I let them know, you are going to see probably anywhere from 25 to 75% more shedding over the next 48 to 72 hours, because I have disturbed all of that undercoat. So anything that wasn't ready to come out when I was working on it might be ready within 72 hours. So be prepared. Do not think that you're taking this dog home and you're not going to see any more hair on your hardwood floor or your tile,
Right.
And then
that is about educating the customer.
Exactly. And educating ourselves so that we don't take a Cocker Spaniel coat and expect it to have the same feel and texture to it after a shampoo as we would, even a Golden Retriever. You can't, you have to know the history and know what's natural and normal for that coat type, and expect that Cockers are that thicker, heavier, velvety, just a very, very different feeling to the coat. And you can't,
and that's why they
make them all the same.
Velvety.
Exactly.
That's why it's because they need those oils within that coat to build up that sheen.
And it's really important for people to know. It's not, you don't want to search the products until you can make every one of them feel the same. They're not the same.
They're not supposed to be the same.
Exactly. Yeah. They are significant. There's a significant difference between the Chesapeake Bay Retriever and the Springer Spaniel and the Cocker Spaniel and the Golden Retriever and the Irish Setter. There's just in texture and in the whole function of the coat.
And then the variety itself within the breed. From dog to dog.
Absolutely. And that's why it's not, to me, it's never, there are products that I like better than others, on specific breeds, but more than anything, it is that therapeutic process more than it is the product that I'm, using. Because everybody always wants, whenever we do a show or we do a class, everybody wants us to tell them what the magic product is. Tell me what product. Tell me what product to buy.
Once you get the foundational concepts, the world opens up for you, and you can use every product.
But
you know how to use it. That's
Right.
the difference.
It's the process. It's not that individual product.
Right. The question has to be flipped from what's the best shampoo to use to does this shampoo have the ingredients I need to do my work? Flip it around. That's the most important question. All shampoos clean to some degree or another. All conditioners condition to some degree or another. But unless you have the concepts, the breed type knowledge, the skin knowledge, until you have those concepts, you're not going to be able to have the world as your oyster. You know, once you open up every formula that's ever been made for dogs, now you know how to use it if you know the concepts behind breed type, behind skin coats, behind skin types, and what the needs are for the breeds. All those things mesh together, and they make you free. So you're not tied to one brand or one conditioner or one shampoo or one technique even.
Yeah.
You know?
And
well, on that note,
5 minutes after the hour, Angie raises the Furminator question. Can we wait till next week, Angie?
Yeah, but I want to go back, Michelle. What you were just saying is one thing. We were talking products, and we get onto products a lot. But ladies and gentlemen that are watching, September, 5 episodes, power up your product knowledge. There you go. So we will have this whole talk specifically around what you just said. 5 whole episodes of it.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yep.
So that's good. The Furminator. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Just it's deadly. It's just no.
And
Angie, you're quite right.
It's a tool like any other, and if it is used, I believe that if you put a crayon, right, but if you put a crayon in the hand of Rembrandt, it's going to be beautiful. If you put a crayon, in the hand of an infant, it's not going to be the same thing. Yeah. Exactly. It's going to be a mess. They're going to eat it. They're going to, they don't know what to do with it. So it's a tool like any other. I am not fond. I do not have them. I do not use them.
I actually think I think that it's not like any other because it's supposed to be like a carding tool, but carding tools are supposed to be at how do I do this on the computer? 45-degree angle. The Furminator is on a 90-degree angle, right? And so it just cuts. It doesn't pull.
Okay, I'm going to call it a closed tooth blade because there are other products out there.
I was just about to say, that is one thing we do.
Yeah, and I don't
not just the Furminator,
right?
No, any of those.
Closed
it's
tooth
40 blade that they took the back off, and
they put a handle on
design.
it. Yep. So that is actually meant to card out soft coat jammies of terriers. It's not meant to go on Dalmatians or Goldens or anything else. It has been marketed incorrectly. And it has been misused for a very long time. And any product, and I'm not speaking about any specific brand, I'm just putting it out there. Any product, any formula that inhibits or changes the ability of the dog to process hair correctly is probably not a good product. Now, I don't know one product or another that does that, but I'm just saying if you feel or it's explained to you that a product inhibits growth or inhibits processing correctly, it keeps them from shedding or it clumps things together, then that is incorrect. It's incorrect and it's unhealthy, and God only knows what's going to happen to that skin over a period of time using this incorrect method. Hair has to come out of the follicle when it's ready.
Right.
Period.
Period. There is no controlling that. Right.
Which is really, and as we started talking about mostly like these sporting group dogs, a lot of them with this flat lying back. Carding is, you could either do it with a stripping knife at a 45-degree angle. There's different, ways that you can card.
You can use a pumice stone.
Pumice stone. I love, there's a Andis Ultrafine Deshedder that's just amazing at it.
That is the best. That is
tool
the
ever.
Best. That's the best tool for any of those sporting jackets that you just want to card out. You can use them in the tub with conditioner and card out that jacket, or you can do it when they're dirty before the bath. I just had a Springer come in, not very much furnishings at all, and they're like, well, can you do something with this back? I'm like, absolutely. When they came to pick it up, they thought I'd clippered the back. Just because I had dethatched it so well
Right, you
with
just
that
carved it
thinner.
out.
They're like, this is beautiful. Did you put a clipper on my dog? And I'm like, absolutely not.
No, and just so those of you that, like me that have been saying, when are they going to start making it again? They stopped during the pandemic because the Andis factory couldn't have all of the lines working at production levels like they had before. I sympathize. The Andis factory is actually literally like 45 minutes from my house. It's in Racine, Wisconsin. And but I have heard from Andis people that wonderful ultrafine de-shedder, which is basically a carding tool, but very ergonomic. It looks like a little rake.
It's a little
It's
claw.
it's like a little
like
claw.
this.
Oh my God. Fabulous for carding. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great for de-shedding.
I learned how to do something called a pet strip when I actually fell over my Doberman. This was years and years ago. I tripped over she used to like to get underneath a blanket and go to sleep. And I didn't know she was under the blanket. And I was walking and she stood up and I was walking over her and I went flying and I broke my thumb on my right hand, which is the hand I am dominant with.
Yeah.
And so I had, and I do hand strip, and I had a terrier, a border terrier coming in the next day. And here I am, and I can't, what am I going to do? My thumb is all wrapped and it's got the popsicle sticks and everything. And I actually Googled at the time, there was a video of Barbara Bird doing what she called a pet strip. And she was using them. It was way before Andis had theirs, the Mars rakes. And I watched her do this whole dog with these Mars rakes.
Which it helps to get the dead hair, not the stuff that's still firmly rooted.
Exactly. And so I was able to still do that dog and make that client. I didn't say I didn't hand strip with the stripping knives, but there was no way I could hold that knife. But the rake I could use with my thumb still wrapped. So
Melissa, you and I are going to have to exchange notes one days with our hands, because my right hand, see this bent pinky right here?
Yeah.
That is from tripping over an Afghan hound at a dog show. So your thumb and my pinky.
Groomer ingenuity. But I watched Barbara Bird use those Mars rakes, and that was it. I went that morning before my customer was in the afternoon. I went to Ryan's, which is in Phoenix, went down there and bought the Mars rakes and did that dog. And I still to this day do what I call a pet strip.
Yeah, you don't have to do it like they do for show. Absolutely.
No.
Kat says she even uses rubber gloves. And Kat, I've actually heard
an ear powder
people stripping, those little thumb things that they use in offices to go through piles of paper.
Thimbles.
You can use those.
Rubber thimbles.
The rubber thimbles. Yeah.
Rubber thimbles, and I use ear powder. I'll use a little ear powder for grip.
To make it stick and grab. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny. I've talked to so many terrier people, and you wouldn't believe the amount of tools they've just made out of whatever, so they could get a certain portion, or they could do this over here or get into where the cheeks are. I mean, they have all kinds of different stuff. Believe it or not, everybody asks me, well, what brand of stripping knives do you use? I have custom Pearsons. I've got, I've got the Cole set, and I love all of them. I've got probably 7 different full sets of stripping knives. The only one that I use the most is a $3 plastic handled fine stripper that I got at a yard sale about 25 years ago, and it has held up for forever. And that's my favorite one. It fits my hand, it fits my muscles, it helps me grab the hair. So you don't have to have these customized, this one.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to have those unless you are really into terriers or showing terriers, and then you get into the nitty gritty of the balding and the flat work and all the staging. All those are important when you are in that world. But if you're just grooming a bunch of pets and trying to keep terriers healthy, you can make your own
the hair
tool.
follicles cleaned out. That's the main job of the pet. And that's why, all of there's not a single terrier that we don't do some hand stripping on it at my shop, but we'll probably clipper the head and the ears and other things. And we just mainly work on, again, that all important jacket area, which is the most important part. When we groom any coat type, the most important thing is to get that jacket area correct for that coat type.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're going to do the most damage if you don't.
And I know you've
right.
heard us all discuss that we save 85% of the coat on double coats and trim everything else. That 85% is the jacket.
It's exactly the top
neck,
and sides,
the top,
of the, torso,
the sides,
the neck, and
down onto the hips. Everything else can be trimmed up from underneath, but that has to remain intact. That's the 85%.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
All right.
So why is that, Michelle? Why do we, or Jennifer, why do we?
Because
why
that
do we
is
save that?
I mean, common sense, that's where weather hits the dog.
Exactly.
Right?
That's where all those
that's where the coat has to do.
Hairs are very thick and dense.
Yeah. Well, think about it. If everybody sees the pattern that the hair grows in, we've done plenty of shoes, seen dogs shave down for forever, most of us. We know how the hair grows. It grows that way for a reason. And the hair, if remain intact, will not only provide a barrier against toxins and pollens and pollutants, also when it gets wet, it is meant to shed off in that direction.
Exactly.
That's why sometimes too on natural coated animals, you don't really want to shave in front of that ear because those hairs direct the water away from the ear canal itself. Those little hairs are important. They do perform a function. So it just keeps the dog dry. It keeps the dog cleaner, and it helps him spread. If you take away those guard hairs, those are the hairs that actually spread the oil. The secondary coat cannot do that. It's not strong enough. It won't louver up and down. It doesn't move. It just stays all meh. Yeah. So that's what it's for. So that's why you save that jacket.
Wow, I can't wait till next week. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, this was good.
What next week? Which ones you want?
So, well, I mean, we talked a lot about, a lot of things we talked about tonight can go with, a lot of can apply across the board in a lot of principles. But if we have talked a lot tonight about the flat coat, which is the short, flat lying back with the furnishings underneath, flat or feathered coat, some people call it, and some of the smooth coat issues, then the next group to talk about might be the Terriers. Which the wire, I think that the Terrier and the wire coat conversation might be a whole evening unto itself.
Okay.
But, and then, you're working and hurting the double coat conversation and so.
Yeah, I like it.
And then maybe like toys and everybody else and do the long coats.
Are we doing two coats per session?
Well, if you think Terrier and wire is going to take up a whole session, then we'll do that. Then we'll go into working and hurting. And then what's our wrap out?
We have the long coats, the long coats and the curly coats. The drop or long coats and the curly coats.
The standouts.
Which, standouts. That's what people call them, the curly coats, right?
The ones that you fluff up and hand scissor.
And Kat is asking for a show on blow drying. Hey, Kat, I'm going to be doing a blow drying seminar at the Atlanta Pet Fair, live demo in person. It's actually going to be, we're just going to be talking about all the different ways to blow dry. So anybody that has any, ideas for me to address when I'm in Atlanta, I'd love to talk about. I got to do a whole, this will be a brand new seminar for me on blow drying. So I want everybody's ideas.
So can we talk more about bone dry versus drop dry versus natural dry, cage dry,
drip dry.
That might be
and we can do a whole one on dematting and when you should demat and when you shouldn't, and impacted coat, all that.
Excellent. And Stephanie is a wire fox puppy's coming. Good for you, Stephanie.
The only thing, I've got 1 month left of non-discussions, which is December. So maybe we can do that and push that in December and just do 3 separate episodes.
Blow drying, bathing,
bathing, blow drying,
nail clipping.
That's kind of going to be a month of what's going on with it being one of our busiest for everyone. So,
Right.
all right. Very good. Well, thank you, ladies. Another lovely night. And yeah, a long night. I'm exhausted. All this information. And I'm hot flashing.
It's a lively energy.
It's a problem. Woo. Oh, nails. We got another one, nails. All right.
Yeah.
So we will see everyone next week. Same time, same place, depending on what platform you're at. So we will look forward to that. And ladies, I'm going to take us out and say goodbye.
Everybody stay and watch our closing credits. They're
Yes,
really
I'm going
cool.
to do that. Yep.